Rough. Homer, private wealth advisor, is standing by. He'll be joining me in just a moment. And we're going to be diving into another wealth management related conversation here on the show today. But before we bring Homer out, I want to set the scene for what you can expect on today's episode. Look, the people that you know in your life can play a big part in the amount of success you achieve, both in business and in your personal life. But for contacts to be important, and important and valuable to your success overall, you need to develop powerful relationships with them. Relationships that can also be so powerful that both sides are benefiting from it and everybody is reaping the rewards. So that's really the focal point of today's conversation. We're going to be exploring some key ways to make that happen. Today's episode entitled 7 Steps to Powerful Professional Relationships. So before we dive into this and get started, let's go ahead and say hey to Homer. Homer, it's good to see you today. How you doing, sir?
Hey Ryan, I'm doing well. Glad to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a good one. Hey, we've heard the age-old adage, right? It's not what you know, but who you know. I mean, how many times have we heard that one? But Homer, while it's not necessarily entirely true, it is the case for the relationships that they really can bring, absolutely vital success to your life, your business. Give me your opening thoughts on this idea.
Yeah, I think the power of professional relationships is not only important, but really what I've seen, it's really the foundation of the tremendous success that multimillionaires and billionaires have achieved. And you know, oftentimes, again, from our experience, it's really their ability to connect interpersonally with other professionals and then really motivate them to bring more success to them and help them achieve more is really where a lot of that the outcomes come from that. And they're the most successful people are just extremely good at developing those relationships.
Well, let's drill down a little bit into this then. What are those highly successful people doing, to both connect and, of course, motivate other people along the way? Because motivation does play a factor here.
Yeah, I think one thing to really keep in mind is it's not rocket science. It's not magic. It might feel like it when you watch it happen sometimes, but in my experience in watching it happen live is one thing I see the most that really leads to it is you've got to be passionate. If you're watching this, you're probably very driven to succeed and you really believe in what you're doing. And it really matters to you. And so, if you're able to communicate that enthusiasm to others and really enroll them into this path that you're on, they're going to be more. They're going to look for ways to try to help you and work with you. And so, as you're thinking through this, you might ask yourself, what is it about your business and other endeavors that you're in that you're most passionate about? And once you have that, there's all this Simon Sinek and this idea of why. If you really understand your why and you can really express that why, you're going to be able to better enroll people in motivating them to follow you and help you.
Sure, sure, Homer. Passion, you can see and feel even somebody's passion when you're in the room discussing a topic with them. But how does somebody take their level of passion that they have for something and then go that next step? And that's convey it so that they're getting other people on board with that same level of passion.
Yeah, in my experience, really you've got to engage in meaningful dialogue with others. And really what I mean by that is in the professional situations that you're in, how one-sided is the conversation? Is it free flowing, or is it trying to really push your ideas and your thoughts? And what I've seen and what I've seen other successful professionals recognize is the more open the dialogue is, the more free flowing it is, the more it's give and take in the conversations. And if you really are focused on the right topics, if you're talking about something that clearly the other party isn't interested in, they're not going to engage. And really, what I found is being curious, where you're the one asking more questions. Most successful people like to talk about themselves, but they're almost always competing for that ability to do that. And so everyone's just trying to get their kind of piece in edgewise. But if you really focus on being curious and asking questions and being genuinely curious about the answers, what you're often going to find is people are going to wrap up that meeting and say, gosh, that was like the best conversation I've ever had. And it's because you just let them talk about themselves the whole time and were curious. So I think that's a huge component of it.
No, that's a really good point there. And there, the other age-old adage is walking the walk and then talking the talk and then walking the walk. That is, Homer does this idea then of that give and take conversation that feels mutually beneficial to both sides. Does it extend beyond just the conversation, into the actions? The idea of walking the walk. Talk to me about this front.
Yeah, so I do think that is critically important to all of this, and beyond the curiosity, just being interested in what they're all about. I think if you actually go out of your way to build powerful relationships, and by finding a way to help them accomplish their most important goals, is going to accelerate the success of this. And as part of being curious, if you're able to really understand what's most important to the other professionals you're working with, what are their goals, what are they trying to achieve, what do they want their business to look like, what kind of clients are they looking to work with, and what kind of value do they want to bring to them. um, that's going to be hugely impactful. And it seems so simple, but the way you do that is by being more direct and asking those questions, and again, just being curious about the answers to those. So yeah, I think that much more than just being curious, it's actually diving into specifically what they're looking to achieve, and then directly trying to help them be successful with that.
Yeah, no, no, I like this a lot. Homer, I can see how obviously that approach of giving something to get something in return, there's value there. It makes sense. It's mutually beneficial. Any other ways that come to mind for you in terms of enlisting people, enlisting these folks that you're trying to develop that powerful relationship with in and motivating them to help you and further this idea of reciprocity?
Yeah, and I see it in our world, working with a lot of really important professionals that also work with our clients, whether it be attorneys or accountants. But I think it also works in most other professionals as well, as an idea of providing an economic glue. And so a question to ask yourself, if you think about how this might fit in your scenario, is how do other people make money working with me and doing what I want them to do? And once you understand the respective incentives involved, so thinking through what's in it for them, it's going to allow you to then help design a support mechanism with working with them that's going to provide a financial incentive for them to want to do that. And so again, it's this idea of economic glue. And so when I think about it from our world, when I work with an attorney or an accountant, there's oftentimes, because of just the nature of their work, um, it's harder for them sometimes to do direct planning with their clients and being overly proactive about the future because they're so focused on what's going on right now with the client. And if we can help them identify ways to bring more value to their clients, and it might save them some additional taxes, or it might put them in a position to be better protected from a lawsuit or a risk. That's really a good outcome for the client, and it's going to lead to a deeper financial engagement for that other professional. And so I think those are things that you got to think through to are there ways you can provide that, again, whether it's in our industry or in something completely separate from financial services, but it's that economic glue that really drives a lot of value.
Oh no, this is good, and I appreciate that example. That was a good example there of how you lean on a lawyer or accountant. I like that a lot. Homer, we're talking a lot about these kind of direct strategies that somebody can utilize to generate and cultivate these powerful professional relationships. But in your experiences, are there any softer, more nuanced elements of this process in terms of building and fostering that powerful relationship? Anything here come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think underneath all of this, underlying everything we're talking about, is building trust in these relationships and really fostering
That's
a
a good
high
one.
degree of trust. I think it's you can't, I think, build a really good, powerful long-term relationship if you don't trust the other professionals that you're working closely with. And oftentimes what trust comes down to is things like integrity. And so do you actually believe that person is honest and reliable? They have to be technically capable. So you would do not want to put another professional in front of your own client if you don't believe they can deliver. And then so yourself, you have to be technically capable, that if someone's going to trust you, that you have to be able to deliver on that. And then you have to be responsive. And so if you can combine integrity, highly technical skill, and being very responsive, it's going to go a long way towards quickly building trust in that relationship, and being that go-to person for that other professional.
Homer, you said something interesting there, though. Quickly building trust. I think that's a hard thing to do because I feel like in most instances of my life, and I'm sure you can attest to the same. Most of the time, trust is built over a longer span of time. So, for let's say maybe some new professional relationships that you're in the process of developing, and you want to build that trust, what could somebody do to maybe move that process along a little quicker than that, than maybe they're used to?
Yeah, that's a great point. I definitely said, build it more quickly, because I think that's the important component of it is, trust does take time to build. And, I think some of the more simple things is, you know, try not to prove how perfect you are, right? And admitting that there are some imperfections and that there's things that, are different about you. And, one of the most successful consultants that I work with, he goes out of his way to point out his flaws, his imperfections, his oddities, as well. He regularly makes fun of himself, in the meetings that we do. And what I see, it's as I've been working with him, learning from him, and building the same kind of relationship with him, it's obvious that the clients and the way they react to him, that this works extremely well, and they immediately let their guards down because he is doing that as well. So it's things like, you know quickly apologizing and taking responsibility when you make a mistake that's impacting somebody else, being willing to ask for help, instead of always thinking or trying to prove or show that you have all the answers, um, sharing a problem that you're going through, and trying to get different points of view on it. And then I think, again, what I see from the consultant that I work with is the ability to be self-deprecating, and bring humor in, not only when you make an error, but even before that, and just humanize yourself as a part of the process.
Oh no, Homer, this is good stuff overall. And as we're kind of bringing our conversation to a head, Homer, I think one of the big takeaways here is that there's some steps, right, to developing these, powerful professional relationships, but they aren't terribly complex along the way, and they don't necessarily require training or specialized skills. Any final thoughts with regard to this idea that look, there are things you can be doing. They're not that difficult. It's just you got to do them, frankly, to be able to develop these relationships.
Yeah, 100%. What I would say is, yeah, I would think that nothing that we've talked about today or anything that I've shared are not things that pretty much everybody that's watching, they've heard it before, right? So what's different, and what, the common adage is, successful people do what unsuccessful people are unwilling to do. And in this case, it's just applying these ideas consistently and systematically. So that's really, at the end of the day, building these
Mhm.
powerful relationships over time is taking these ideas and just making sure you're practicing and doing it on a consistent basis, going into a meeting, and as you prepare, as you walk in, tell yourself to be curious, tell yourself to be self-deprecating, and really focus on actually consistently and systematically implementing these ideas.
This is great, Homer. Look, I know you have a lot of conversations like these with your business owner clients, folks that you advise, yes, in a wealth management perspective, but also just a greater business sense. For folks out there in our audience who, let's say this conversation resonated with them, they could use maybe more conversations like it, the idea of learning some skills and strategies to enhance their professional relationships. Maybe they're interested in reaching out to you and your team just to open up a dialogue on this. Homer, what would be the best way they can get in touch with you?
I think there's a couple thoughts I have on that, and
Mhm.
to be honest, I think the people that I have the most success with in this arena are those, accountants and attorneys that work with, high net worth families and business owners, and we've just had a lot of success in a lot of these ideas and implementing them. And there's a couple of things I would consider. One is, I actually did write a book on this, called, "Optimizing the Financial Lives of Clients," where we dive into, this one was really focused on accountants and CPAs, and really how to think through adding more value, to your relationships, with your existing clients, and how working with other professionals can really enhance that. And then what we are doing, we are working with a number of other professionals and helping them think through how to replicate and accelerate some of that success we're having in building those relationships and building that kind of trust. And so, if you want to reach out, if you're an accountant, an attorney, you want to accelerate the growth of your business and really develop these same kind of relationships, we'd love to talk with you, about what we're doing. Feel free to reach out, email me, at the email that you'll see on the screen here, and we'd love to talk about it.
Fantastic. Well, Homer, look, I know you're a busy guy. You got clients to serve, and we'll let you get back to doing that. But I appreciate you, carving some time out to jump into this. At the end of the day, building these relationships, it goes back to that saying that we mentioned at the top of the show. It's not what you know, it's who you know. While yes, that's not entirely true, there's a lot of validity inside that quote. So appreciate you, Homer, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Of course, of course. And hey, folks, before we let Homer go and say goodbye, we want to say one final thank you to you guys, our audience, for stopping by and being with us on the show today. If you took anything away from today's conversation or you benefited from it in any way, shape, or form, go ahead and hit that subscribe button then on whichever platform you check this out on. That way you never miss out on another great conversation between Homer, myself, one of our featured guests, where we tackle different wealth management topics here on the show. Before Homer, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long today, but we appreciate you stopping by and being with us on Advance Your Wealth.